Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay, and I'm on staff with Magnified Giving. And I'm excited to be here today with Kelly and Tricia. And we're going to have a conversation today about children as a social cause area. And so I'm going to let Tricia and Kelly introduce themselves, and I'll ask them to share their organization and their mission and how that aligns with children or how that relates to children. So, Kelly, would you mind kicking us off?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, my name is Kelly Cam. I'm the development director at Paws for Ability, and we serve children with disabilities, any type of disabilities as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act. We also have a smaller veterans and adult program. But basically, we serve any child that lives anywhere around the globe that has a disability with a life-changing or life-saving, in some instances, service dogs.
Very good. Thank you. Tricia?
I am Tricia Lesher. I am with Reviv Family Support Foundation. We support families who have a child that has a life-threatening or life-changing diagnosis. We support them. Basically, we meet the family wherever they are, and we support them through their journey in whatever way that we can.
Very good. Thank you both. So to get started, would you mind sharing, what is the impact of this kind of mission where you're supporting children and their families? What kind of impact does that have on their lives and on our community?
Do you want me to go?
Whichever one of you wants to start.
Okay, I go. So we help families who are either local in Cincinnati or are traveling to Cincinnati to receive medical care. These families are often very stressed out. Often they are separating from other family members to come to Cincinnati. And we provide those traveling families support with hotels, support with food while they're in Cincinnati, support with gas to travel back and forth. And then also, so we like to say we provide practical and emotional support. So we also provide emotional support to that family. So we are a extra set of hands to that family. We can run errands. We can, come and have lunch with mom. We can go for a walk with mom or dad just to give them somebody that they know in Cincinnati. We also support local families who are going through a life-threatening or life-changing diagnosis. So we help families who live in Cincinnati. We help by delivering food to them weekly. We help them also with gas cards, but we also help them with family support. So in the house, we will help that family with activities for their patient children and activities for any siblings. We'll help with light housework. We'll run errands for that family and also just offer that emotional piece to that family. So this really, especially now in COVID, this really helps families be able to cope with their child's illness or injury and also be able to feel like they're not alone. So our support comes in many different ways. Like I said, we meet the family where they are and help them, just help them feel like they have an extra set of hands and they're not alone, and that they're able to take care of their child. So to give them the confidence that they're able to take care of their child. In that, we always do stay with the family for their whole journey. Sometimes that does result in the loss of life of the child, and we support the family through that as well. So again, just that whole being there with whatever they need and making them and helping them know that they're not alone.
So at Fort Paws, the families, they come to our training facility in Xenia, Ohio, and they are there for a 9-day training to learn how to work with the dogs that have been trained specifically for their child's needs. And so while they're there, we actually, they go straight through 9 whole days, including the weekend. And they're with other families, which allows them to really build a community of people that maybe they've not been exposed to before. Unfortunately, a lot of families that have children with disabilities, they feel very isolated sometimes in their communities. So we bring them together and as part of our Fort Paws family, at least while they're in class, and then they have the opportunity as well afterwards to keep in contact with their classmates through, a Facebook group. And we often have events where some of them come back together. Of course, COVID has interrupted some of that, so we have virtual events. But, our hope is that every person that gets a service dog from us will become a greater part of their community, whether it's in Greater Cincinnati, Greater Dayton, Greater Columbus, or around the globe, so that they don't feel so isolated and having to stay home because no one understands their disability. The minute that they have a service dog in public, people start to recognize, oh, okay, that child might have a disability. It might be hidden. They might not see. They might not be able to see that that child's in a wheelchair. Maybe it's a hidden disability, such as autism or seizure disorders or type 1 diabetes. But having that service dog is really a social bridge that helps people go, oh, well, can I ask about your dog, or can I pet your dog? And then gets that conversation going, so that the hope is that people can become more independent, can become more a part of their communities, because we all have that opportunity to do that. We sometimes take that for granted, that we have all access, and with people with disabilities, it's not always the case. So we're super proud of how our service dogs will allow our kids and their families to become greater parts of the community, like we all have that benefit of.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Would you mind sharing how does this work? How is it meaningful to each of you? Like when you see the lives of children impacted, when you see families impacted, why is it meaningful to you? Why do you love the work that you get to do at your organizations?
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Kelly.
You want me to go
Okay.
this time?
I'll go. That's okay. It is just the things that we hear from families, the emotion that we get back from families. We're a very small organization, so I work one-on-one with most of our families. So, I know them, I know their kids, I know what they're going through. I talk to them often. To hear from them that that their child's treatment wouldn't have been possible without us, or that some aspect of it helped them be able to make it through a procedure or something that they had to do, to help them in any little way, and to hear that we've been a part of making their child's treatment successful, or just making their family whole, and making their family be able to go through their journey. It just means everything to me to know that I'm helping people on a daily basis, and to hear from them the ways that I've helped. It's heartwarming to see the volunteers that step in to help families. It's kind of, sometimes I say it's overwhelming to see the need that families have, but then it's also overwhelming to see the way that the community will jump up and help. So that always gives me hope when things are bad in the world, that to see that the community will jump in and help. For Christmas, for example, at Christmas time, we made the decision to reach out to all of our families that we had helped this year, which was roughly 250 families, and ask if, since these families are generally struggling with income, because maybe one person had to leave a job to take care of the child, or maybe they've had a lot of expenses to travel, or a lot of medical expenses, we made the decision to ask all of our families if they needed support with Christmas for their children. And we wound up with about 300 kiddos who needed gifts for. And I was very overwhelmed by the thought of, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get gifts for 300 kids? We decided to try to get whole families adopted by donors. And within a couple of days, every single one of our families was adopted. So that's kind of always an example of, I feel very good about the world, even when the world seems really dark, by the fact that I can see how people will step up to help families in need.
So I've been with Paws for 11 years, and the average development director does not spend that much time at a nonprofit, unfortunately. And the reason I have is not because I'm special, it's just because I really love the mission of Paws, and I see changes every day, and I cry at least once a week in talking with the families, or hearing their stories, or seeing the wonderful bonds that they're service dogs are, forging with their children, and how, the life-saving aspects of it, the life-changing. Our families just feel so supported, and it's just one of those tools that they're able to get from us that, helps them in the fight against their child's disability. And I just feel like what I'm doing is really, helping to change the world. And I agree with Tricia. We see lots of negative news stories, and we sometimes lose faith in people, but we have an amazing supporting group of donors and volunteers and staff that have really, they live the mission of helping people with disabilities. And so I'm really happy to be a part of it. And even if my, career changes next year and I, do something different, I'm still always going to be involved in some way in the nonprofit world, because it just gives me so much joy to be able to help people. And I just every day think how, blessed I am, and thankful that I am that I have the life that I do. And, it's my, it really should be everyone's, you know, desire to give back, to help people that are, really struggling with something in their lives.
Yeah,
I agree. Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Lindsay. I worked at another nonprofit previously. I left there about a year ago for 10 years, and that was in the same space. We helped families with sick children. The thought of ever going anywhere to like a for-profit company or to somewhere that wasn't helpful, I just wouldn't get any kind of job satisfaction out of working for a for-profit company and just, putting in the grind and working 9 to 5 and then going home. I can't ever imagine going back to that after working for nonprofit these past 11 years. So it's just so much satisfaction beyond the paycheck that you get knowing that you help people every single day.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really valuable, and especially for the students listening, just knowing that you have the opportunity to volunteer and be involved in nonprofits in a lot of ways. But one way is to have your career in a nonprofit, and I think that this is really good testimony of what that could look like. So thank you both for sharing that. I'd like to ask what, are your organizations able to partner with other organizations to help impact the lives of children? I know that there are a lot of organizations that do work together because children in our community need support for a lot of different things. And you both kind of have niche types of ways that you're supporting families and children. But do you have partnerships with other organizations, or how do you see other organizations impacting the lives of families and children?
So we have a coalition that we work with because different places do different things. So, Kelly helps with service dogs, and other organizations provide mobility equipment. And so all the different organizations that do things, we have a coalition that we work with of all small nonprofits to kind of make sure that we're meeting all of the families' needs, as well as we have partner hotels that we work with that are really great to us, that help us be able to provide services to families. And we work obviously closely with the hospital. All of our referrals come from either social workers at the hospital or from the Ronald McDonald House. We made the decision during COVID, to change our policy a little bit and allow the Ronald McDonald House to start referring families to us, because they're very limited on the amount of families they can have in the house right now. And so they are turning away the majority of the people who need to stay there. So they have started to refer families to us so that we're able to help them by putting them in a hotel. Obviously, we can't meet the entire need of the Ronald McDonald House, but we are able to help families who have shorter term stays by putting them in a hotel. So we work with a lot of different organizations to serve families.
Yeah, and our clients also have support from different other nonprofit organizations, around Cincinnati and Greater Dayton. The Ronald McDonald House, you mentioned them, in Greater Dayton, they actually allow 2 of our families to stay there during each class, and we have 12 classes a year. And so they help, 24 families, and it's crucial because our families, as Tricia mentioned, some of our families, only one parent is able to work because of the needs of the child. And so you have just one income. And then to come to 9 days to spend in a hotel, it can be very expensive. So having the Ronald McDonald House is a huge plus. But we have so many different corporate partners too that will support us in many different ways. Our volunteers too, they always have snacks and drinks and things for the 9-day class to help. So it just takes a village of wonderful other nonprofits and just dedicated individuals, corporations, foundations to make our missions work.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think it's beautiful for students to understand that if you have multiple passions or cause areas that you're passionate about, there are so many people who work together to impact change in different ways. And if you're interested in both animals and children, or health and children, like these are two examples of organizations that have their hands in different cause areas. And so I just love that people need to work together to impact change. And so there's really a lot of different opportunities for students to get involved, which is awesome. What are some of the challenges facing the work that you're doing at this time, specifically with trying to support children and families? What complicates that? It could be COVID related or just in general. What are some of the things that make that work challenging?
We are definitely challenged right now with COVID because our base service is to provide support to families on a one-on-one basis. And so that's harder. A lot of our children are immune suppressed. So obviously the families are very concerned about COVID. So we've really pivoted to try to provide services in different ways during the pandemic with not being able to be in the hospital. One of the services that we provide to families is we're an extra support person to them in the hospital, so we can sit with their patient and do activities with their patient if mom needs to go and spend time with another sibling, and that's not something we're able to do right now. We have met families even in the hospital cafeteria and just ate lunch with them just to give them that extra time and extra attention. Another way that we've had to pivot is we have started to allow families, instead of our support workers, which we have that support families, we are helping families by allowing them to have their own support workers. That might be a family member that they trust or another close person that they trust. And then Reviv is helping by actually paying that support person. So it's more than a favor that they're asking somebody for, so that family can get that respite care and that family can get the things that they need completed. I already mentioned that we're helping by supporting more families in hotels. So that's been a challenge to our budget, and we've had to shift some things around in our budget to be able to help those families. But all in all, I think we've really adapted really well through COVID and are able to provide new and growing services to families.
The issue at Paws is really right now our need for what we call volunteer trainers or puppy raisers or foster homes. Winter is historically not the greatest time to have a dog and have to take that dog out on walks and take it out to potty multiple times a day. And then, of course, take it into public. COVID has definitely affected our ability to socialize our dogs in public settings. But right now, we do have a need for what we call volunteer trainers. And these are people that are trained on how to raise a dog in their home until their dog is ready to go into advanced training as a service dog. And so if you are in the, this viewing area, we, go all the way out to Illinois, all the way up to Northern Ohio. And your family might want to look into becoming a volunteer training home. Please apply on our website. We're always looking for that. And it's great. We'll give you all of the materials that you might need, your food, training equipment, a crate, what have you. And then we're doing Zoom basic obedience classes right now in some areas. Some are in person, much smaller than before, but that's our need because, service dogs need that, all that public access and the experience with other people, places, and things. And having them at our facility in our kennel, we do have staff that can socialize them, but it's not the same. It's not as enriching as it could be. So Historically, winter is always tough, but it's really tough because there's so many people that can't, like our college students. We use several different colleges, 25 in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, that take our dogs on campus. And if they're not in in-person class, these dogs aren't getting the exposure. So they're just letting them, come back to Four Paws in the hope that someone else can take over that socialization. So we're in a big need for volunteer trainers right now, and it is a pretty rewarding experience. It's work, of course. It's adding a pet to your home, but you get so many different benefits knowing that that could be a service dog one day, that's life changing or life saving for a child.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. I guess the last question I'd like to ask, Kelly, you mentioned an opportunity, obviously, for volunteer trainers. What are other ways that students at this time, if they're interested in getting behind your missions or getting behind supporting children and families in general, what advice would you give them? How can they get involved and kind of get behind this mission?
So for us, one of the things that we like to provide family is activities. So we're always interested in students helping with activities for families. So that can look like they go on Pinterest and find an activity and then get all of the supplies and directions for that one activity and kind of make it into little bags for an activity kit for a kid. That can work in a lot of different ways that they can support families remotely like that. Also, obviously, fundraising is always something that we need. We need funds to be able to support our families. So any kind of small fundraisers are always awesome for us. And just making sure that people know that we're here and that we're able to support families and that we're always here for families if they need us. So just even getting the word out about our organization is something that's always really great for us.
Yeah, for Paws, I echo a little bit about what Tricia says. Always in need of different supplies. Milk bones and pepperoni and Kong toys and Nylabone toys. Any kind of other supplies. Paper towels, those type of things that we use every day. So students could donate a few items or rally their classmates or their families or other neighborhoods, communities, school, whatever, and coming up with some supplies that help us and what we do every day. And then we are still we do have some volunteers, and so they could do some puppy play. I mean, there are much smaller groups than what we used to have. But we are open on the weekends as well because we're considered like a hospital. We have living things there 24/7. So we have staff there, and why not allow people to come in on their weekends or evenings and play with puppies? And that's always kind of a fun thing to do. So all that information can be found on our website on how to help.
Awesome. Very good. Well, Tricia, Kelly, thank you guys so much for your time today and for sharing your expertise about your organizations and about this cause. Students who are watching, thank you for joining, and I hope you learned a lot. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you.